Welcome to UX Design Savvy. I'm Sammy. Today I'm going to show you how to create responsive cards in Figma. Ready? Let's go. Okay, so here you see a responsive card that I've created. We're going to go ahead and duplicate this card. And this card is not only responsive, but it has the auto layout wrap applied that Figma offers. So I'll show you what that looks like. So as you make the card smaller, it'll hit a minimum width and it will wrap the content to below the image. So it takes it from a landscape mode to a portrait mode. So the original card is kind of in a landscape, and then I get to a minimum size and it switches and it's in portrait. So we're gonna go ahead and make this card. And I have all the components here for the card. I'm going to go ahead and go through each one of these so you see how I set them up to get ready, so you can do the same. So we have an image component here, and then I have the text brand name, and then I also have a heart so that the user could favorite that item. And I went ahead and applied auto layout already to this row. So if you look at the screen here, you'll see auto layout to the right is applied with an auto width in between these two options. Okay, so between the brand text and the heart. So as it expands, the width will auto adjust. Then I have a description beneath it, and then we have a rating that will just stay constrained to the left hand side. And then I added another row here where we have the price, and I applied auto layout to this row as well, with the quantity feature on the right. It also has auto width in between, and then a row of buttons that have a width of 12 in between them, so the buttons will get larger based on the size of that container. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to go ahead and set this up in landscape mode like the original card that you saw to begin with. And to do that, I'm going to take this all these bottom options. I'm going to go drag and select each one of them. And I'm going to say Shift A on my keyboard. That's going to apply auto layout. Now for auto layout, I want these each to have 16 in between. You can adjust so that they don't all have the same spacing between each one. If you want, for example, the description to be closer to the brand name, you would apply auto layout to those two first and then the whole content section. But I'm going to go ahead and keep them consistent with 16 pixel spacing. So we have 16 pixels in between each one of these. I'm going to go ahead and call this content. Okay, and now because we have content set up, I want to go ahead and take a look at each one of these rows and make sure that each row fills this container that I just set up with auto layout. So I'm going to say, instead of fixed, we'll say fill container. We'll do that with each one. We'll say fill. So as it gets smaller, it will just continue to fill that. I'm going to go ahead and leave this as it is because it's just going to remain on the left-hand side. It should never get smaller than that row. We'll go ahead and say fill container for this guy and fill container for the buttons as well. All right, so that went ahead and adjusted automatically. I'm going to go ahead and drag this up here to the right of my image. Now I'm going to go ahead and select the image and the content and say Shift A again. This is going to apply auto layout and create the actual card. So I've got 16, it has 18. I'm going to adjust that to 16 pixels in between. We're going to add padding to the sides and top and bottom of 16 as well. We'll go ahead and add a fill to that of just a white fill. We're going to round those corners. We'll say 16. And then let's go ahead and add an effect, a drop shadow. So it looks like a card there. Okay, so now we have our card. I'm going to select image and we're going to say fill container for image. And I'm going to select the content section and we'll say fill container for the content section. So they're both set to fill the container. But what we can do now, so let's drag it. We can see it does adjust. That's nice. Okay. But you don't see the effect that I showed you earlier with the wrapping. So, and you can see if you go too small, they're on top of each other, right? So let's set some constraints here of a minimum width. Let's start with the image and we'll say for the image, we're going to add a minimum width of 250 pixels. Okay, so that's the smallest it can get. And then we're going to add a minimum width for the content section of the same. Let's say admin width of 250 pixels. Okay, this could be whatever you want it to be. This card, we're going to go ahead and say wrap, okay, instead. And now you'll see, because of the card size, it did wrap and now it's in portrait. If we make it smaller, so we've still got an issue going on. This is the actual frame of the card. Now we need to go ahead and set a minimum for the card size as well. Let's set that. We'll add a minimum of, let's just say 280 for that. Okay. All right, so now you can see it's working as it should. We've got it in portrait mode here. And if we get to a certain width, it wraps. So it expands, it expands, it expands, and it expands, and it'll just keep expanding. And the reason for that is because we haven't set a max width, which we could do if we wanted to. You can set a max width or max height. So you could also add height constraints as well. I'm just going to go ahead and use the minimum width one. And so we've got our portrait here. I'm sorry, our landscape here, and then portrait here. So that's your responsive card. Now you know how to do it. It's your turn. Give it a try. Get savvy.